On Friday night, CBS News will air an hour-long special called The Deciders. It explores the changing U.S. electorate that will choose our next president. CBS News contributor Maria Elena Salinas spoke with Latino Americans in Florida and Arizona, where political views are varied and diverse and may play into the outcome of the election. Here's a preview.
What was it about President Trump that made you leave the Republican Party?
In particular, the way he talks about people. You can't say that Mexico is sending their worst people. Rapists and murderers. Any person who can say that with a straight face does not know the people who come here to work. They are mothers who have strapped babies to their backs and walked across deserts, swum across rivers. And when you are Mexican and you hear your people being talked about that way, it's a no. It is a no. And I think that Latinos in Arizona are understanding that good things can't come from a bad man.
And Maria Elena Salinas joins me now. It's so good to have you with us, Maria Elena. Thank you so much. The Latino population in America is incredibly diverse. Generally speaking, how much do they turn out?
Hi, Elaine. Good to talk to you. Well, that's a good question. Yes, they are diverse, and they're very large and very important. It's 32 million Latinos that are eligible to vote this time around, which is the largest minority. Now, in past elections, they have usually voted less than the general public, than the general electorate. But this time around, it will be a little bit more. There will still be lesser numbers than the rest, but I think over 54% have already expressed their interest in voting. That's on a national level. But if we go state to state, for example, in Texas, 90% of Latinos have already said that they are very enthusiastic about voting and are willing to go out and vote. That's just, one of the examples of the things that we need to be looking out for. Only about half of them were registered in 2018. So there's been a mad rush to register more Latinos in these last 2 years, and specifically in these last 2 months. And of course, activists are hoping that at least 2 or 3 million more have registered for this election.
And some Latino voters are very conservative. I want to play part of your conversation with a young woman from Venezuela. Let's watch that.
Fears of socialism are real for 24-year-old Gabriela Quintana. Do you think Joe Biden is a socialist?
Okay, I believe he inclines a lot to the left.
She immigrated to the U.S. from Venezuela 10 years ago.
I believe he coquetea. How do you say? He flirts with the socialist ideologies.
She's voting for the first time as an American, but in her heart, she's voting for Venezuela.
The United States is one of the greatest countries in the world. And once, many years ago, Venezuela was a great country too. We lost it completely. And it's ruined because of socialist ideas. So I defend the person who defends democracy.
So it's so fascinating to hear from her, Maria Elena, because, of course, some of the rhetoric we've been hearing from President Trump seems to be tailor-made for people, voters just like her. Did socialism come up a lot in your conversations?
It's interesting because you just played two completely different voters, one from Arizona and one from Florida, and you see the diversity and the division within the Latino community. This is an issue that is very important in Florida, not only for the Cuban American community, who usually does vote Republican, especially the older generation. But this time around, you have to add to that equation the Venezuelans, maybe some Nicaraguans, and some other Central Americans. The Latino community is very diverse in Florida, but we have to remember that only 29% of that vote is Cuban and only 2% is Venezuelan. So you still have almost 60% supporting Biden, but 40% is a lot for a Republican coming from the Latino community. In fact, the state of Florida is the one that has the highest level, or the only one that reaches that amount of support, or that level of support for President Trump. But, you know, people feel very passionate about their positions, as you just saw in the two sound bites that you just presented. People feel very, very, very strongly. And yes, it is resonating with them. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, but people are really believing it because it is very personal to them.
Well, what other issues matter most to this particular group of voters?
Well, the issues that really matter most to the Latino community as a whole is healthcare and coronavirus, the economy, and education. Those are some of the most important ones. And it's because the Latino community has been hard hit by coronavirus. They have not only the most cases and the most deaths, but also the most loss of jobs. So they have been really impacted by this. So they will support someone that they feel will control coronavirus. They will support someone who they feel will lower health care costs. And also the economy and jobs. Those are really the major issues for the Latino community. A lot of people think that immigration is the #1 issue, but it's not necessarily in the top 3 issues. It's more of an issue that is emotional for Latinos, immigration, more so when they feel that they're being discriminated against because of their ethnicity. But, you know, it's not much different from the rest of the electorate. The rest of the electorate also cares for the economy, jobs, healthcare, and coronavirus.
All right, Maria Elena Salinas, so great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elaine.